Hello, this is Jane, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the December 11 issue of the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And the first article I'm going to read is from the front page under the byline Star Investigation. And the headline reads, Video Footage Missing in Jail Assault Claim. Loss of video shows concerning pattern at Maplehurst, says ex-inmate's lawyer. And this is by Brendan Kennedy. In what one former inmate's lawyer described as a suspicious pattern, the Maplehurst Correctional Complex has lost critical video footage in another case of alleged inmate abuse. Jail officials admitted in court proceedings that staff saved the wrong surveillance camera footage in relation to a 2021 incident, meaning there is nothing to corroborate the inmate's claim that he was assaulted by correctional officers. The former inmate, Christopher Vance, sued the province and 4 unnamed correctional officers in September 2023 for $445,000, alleging he was assaulted by jail guards on 2 occasions, once at Maplehurst and once at the Stratford Jail, leading to physical and mental injuries. Maplehurst officials infamously lost some audio and video footage of a December 2023 incident when nearly 200 inmates were violently strip searched 2 days after an inmate punched a guard. A judge recently concluded that someone at Maplehurst, quote, likely, unquote, destroyed the footage as part of an overall attempt by jail officials to cover up what happened. The missing footage and the lack of accountability for its inexplicable disappearance were factors in the judge's decision to throw out first-degree murder charges. Vance's lawyer, Lydia Dobson, said in an interview with The Star in early October that the fact Maplehurst has lost potentially incriminating video footage in multiple cases is very, very concerning. The jail's admission that it had lost surveillance camera footage in Vance's case emerged during the October 2024 pretrial examination of one of Maplehurst's deputy superintendents, who explained that a staff member tasked with collecting and preserving video of Vance's alleged assault mistakenly saved video from an adjacent wing of the jail. Video from the correct wing was subsequently deleted when the 59-day retention period expired. Dobson said she and Vance have some skepticism of the jail's explanation that it was an honest mistake. It's very obviously the wrong wing, Dobson said, adding that video footage disclosed to them from other surveillance cameras is of the correct wing, which raises questions about how such a mistake could be made. Seeing this pattern at Maplehurst, where critical video footage is missing or unavailable, it's just very, very concerning from our perspective. The Star has not viewed any video footage related to Vance's case. The footage that does exist was shared confidentially with Vance and his lawyer as part of the lawsuit's disclosure process, but the video is not publicly accessible. Contacted by the Star in November, Vance's lawyer said she could no longer comment on the case. A spokesperson for the Ministry of the Solicitor General, which is responsible for the province's jails, did not respond to questions for this story, writing via email in October that it would be inappropriate to do so while the matter remained before the court. Vance, who has anxiety and autism spectrum disorder, was in a cell on a specialized mental health range at Maplehurst in September 2021 when he was ordered by jail staff to move to a general population cell. He refused to leave, he said, because he believed he needed more treatment. After being ordered again by jail staff to leave the cell, Vance took a rope he had made from torn bed sheets, tied it around his neck, and then locked himself inside the cell. His statement of claim describes these actions as a cry for help. "I panic," Vance told the Star in October. Two guards then entered his cell, and one of them, according to Vance's claim, grabbed him by his shirt collar, at which point Vance pulled away. One of the guards then punched Vance in the face, knocking his glasses off and stomping on them, Vance claims. He said both guards then repeatedly punched and kicked him until other guards arrived and placed Vance in handcuffs. In its statement of defense, the province denied that correctional officers used excessive force, claiming Vance repeatedly refused to comply with the directions of the correctional officers and was verbally abusive and physically assaultive toward the staff. In an attempt to maintain order, protect themselves and the plaintiff from harm, correctional officers utilized necessary force to resolve the situation caused by the plaintiff, reads the statement of defense. Ontario pleads that any use of force employed by the officers and staff at Maplehurst was reasonable and necessary, as the plaintiff was refusing to follow orders, was a danger to himself, and was a danger to staff. There are no surveillance cameras inside the cells where the alleged assault occurred, but there is a camera pointed at Vance's cell door that could have theoretically captured some of what took place inside the cell. That's the footage that is missing. Vance, who later pleaded guilty to arson and other offenses and spent 3.5 years in custody, also claims guards smashed his head against each door frame they passed through after taking him from his cell. The videos disclosed to them exclude those alleged incidents, he claims, by cutting to a new camera just as he and the guards approach a door frame, rather than showing them pass through. All right, the next article is also from the front page under the byline of healthcare, and it is titled, "It's the Hunger Games, but the prize is a GP. Ontario cities use cash perks to lure badly needed doctors." And this is by Megan Ogilvie. A family doctor who moves to Niagara Falls, Ontario, population 105,000, will receive a $100,000 signing bonus for opening a new practice. A short drive away, St. Catharines, the region's largest city, offers a comparatively meager $5,000 relocation grant in its bid to attract family doctors. Up in cottage country, Huntsville provides up to $80,000 to doctors who move to town to either establish or take over a family medicine practice. The incentive package, which may also include a 1-year car lease donated by the community, comes with a swim and skate membership to the town's community center and a family pass to Muskoka Heritage Place. As Ontario grapples with a family doctor shortage, municipalities across the province are shelling out thousands of dollars to lure physicians to their communities. Incentive packages, which largely come from municipal coffers, include everything from signing bonuses to free housing to financial help for relocation expenses. As a guarantee, many cities, including Niagara Falls and Huntsville, require doctors to stay for at least 5 years, hoping that's enough time for physicians to put down roots. But even as recruitment efforts ramp up across the province, some cities and towns don't have the means to join the intense competition. This has been referred to as the Hunger Games, said Jill Croteau, chair of the Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, a not-for-profit coalition of hospital and community-based physician recruiters. If a municipality doesn't have the resources for financial incentives, then they're being held at a disadvantage. Last week, Ontario's Auditor General called out the fragmented approach to doctor recruitment in her annual report to the legislature. In her audit of the province's oversight of access to primary care, Shelley Spence concluded the Ministry of Health was failing to get more Ontarians a family doctor. Among her findings, she pointed to a lack of provincial coordination in physician recruitment, which is leading to both competition and duplication between communities. For municipalities that don't have the resources to attract doctors, Spence said the current practice raises an issue of fairness for Ontarians. The report, released December 2nd, stated that Ontario Health, the super agency formed by the Ford government to oversee health administration, is not responsible for overall physician recruitment in the province. That has left individual municipalities to spend public dollars on recruitment committees, to employ physician recruiters, and to provide financial incentives to address the primary care needs of their communities, the report said. Some 2 million Ontarians do not have access to primary care, a crisis the provincial government has pledged to fix by 2029. The report cited a 2025 survey by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, that's AMO, that found the responding municipalities, which account for 89% of the province's population, collectively spent more than $6.3 million a year on recruitment and incentives. It stated Ontario is the only province that has not developed a centralized physician recruitment strategy, and stressed that failing to create one could lead to greater inequalities in primary care access. The AMO said in a statement that many municipal governments go above and beyond their responsibilities to shore up local gaps by spending their own dollars to attract doctors to their communities. Association President Robin Jones said the 2025 survey showed the $6.3 million that municipalities used to recruit doctors includes financial incentives, but also housing subsidies and other carrots. She said the fragmented approach leads to long lines for new clinics and municipalities competing for the same medical professionals, adding that a more coordinated provincial recruitment strategy would ensure residents have fair access to health care. Every municipal dollar that subsidizes provincial areas of responsibility is one less dollar for core municipal services like public safety, transportation, and community parks and recreation, Jones said. London Mayor Josh Morgan is opposed to using municipal dollars to fund financial incentives for doctors, saying the practice should be banned in the province. He said his council has resisted using signing bonuses and other cash incentives despite criticism, and even though the fast-growing city is in dire need of family doctors. Some 84,000 people in London and the surrounding area don't have a family physician. Municipalities can boost recruitment in other ways, such as helping with zoning and permitting, and can support province-wide recruitment and retention efforts, Morgan said. What I can't support is us using property tax dollars in a race to the bottom competition with other municipalities. The Auditor General recommended that Ontario Health and the Ministry of Health coordinate their physician recruitment efforts, including with municipal partners. The ministry agreed, and in the report said it recognizes the importance of recruiting family physicians. in an equitable manner, adding that work is underway through Ontario's Primary Care Action Plan. That's PCAT. In a statement to the Star, a spokesperson for the Health Minister, Sylvia Jones, said the $2.1 billion PCAT or PCAT includes the expansion of primary care teams and that the province this summer announced nearly 80 new and expanded teams in regions with the highest rates of unattached patients. Emma Popovic said teams target people on the Healthcare Connect waitlist, which she said has shrunk by 65% since January 1, a point not accounted for by the Auditor General. The statement did not address questions about how the government will expand its work on equitable physician recruitment or on the practice of municipalities providing financial incentives to recruit doctors. Rather, Popovic listed the province's primary care efforts, including the addition of nearly 20,000 new doctors since 2018, the expansion of medical school seats, and the modernization of the Family Health Organization model to help attract and retain physicians. Croteau of the Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance said the organization, which connects almost 60 recruitment programs across 5 provincial regions, welcomes the Auditor General's findings, which validated its experience of municipalities filling in provincial gaps. She said recruitment work, including marketing, community tours, clinic setup, and retention, is being done by staff funded by municipalities, hospitals, and regional programs. She said OPRA agrees more provincial coordination is needed, and that clear provincial partnerships and stable funding would prevent more inequity among communities. Already, OPRA's members communicate recruiting tips and best practices and share doctor candidates among municipalities, said Croteau, the Physician Recruitment Program Manager for the Niagara region. The goal, she said, is to help doctors find a community that's the right fit, both for their professional goals and for their family life. We want them to have the best experience. If they're happy, they are going to stay. And I need to pause here to remind you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next article is also from the front page under the byline of Transit. No quick fix for slow LRT, City says. Riders must wait until New Year to see improvements on new Finch West line by Andy Takagi. There is political will to improve the slow service on the new Finch West LRT, but city staff warned Wednesday that it would not be an easy fix and would likely take until the new year, angering the area's frustrated riders who have waited more than half a decade for rapid transit. On Wednesday, the TTC board passed a motion telling its CEO, Mandeep Lally, to work with Metrolinx, city staff, and Mosaic, the consortium that built the line, to adopt a more aggressive transit signal priority on Finch West. Such a system would allow the LRT to extend green lights at intersections and, for the first time, give it priority ahead of left-turning cars at a red light. Mayor Olivia Chow plans on introducing a similar motion at City Council next week. We are seeing the stars align in terms of the political will and the actual policies that people want to see, said Board Chair Councillor Jamal Myers. Chow and Myers are pushing for faster travel times on the Finch West LRT only 4 days after its opening, which has left the community riders with a rapid transit line slower than a bus it was meant to replace. We have noticed that there are things that we can be doing better, Myers added. Derek Toigo, the city's head of transit expansion, told the board there could be a knock-on cost effects of improving on the Finch line, including wear on the trains if speed and service are increased. Toigo added that the Finch West line has a speed of 60 kilometers per hour, which was approved by the council in July 2021 over concerns about potential collisions with pedestrians and cars on the track. The trains that run on the Finch line are capable of a top speed of 90 kilometers per hour. Roger Brown, the city's director of traffic management, told the board that staff were currently gathering data and any changes to the Finch West LRT wouldn't take effect until the new year. We're going to be developing a model to basically help inform the design, said Brown. The intent is that early in the new year we would be able to implement this more aggressive form of transit signal priority. Metrolinx, the provincial transit agency that oversaw construction of the light rail line, has laid the blame for the slow operation of the trains at the city's feet. The City of Toronto and the TTC have been the ones to put speed restrictions through intersections and have not used the full extent of the train signal priority, Metrolinx spokesperson Lindsay Miller said in a statement. If they wish to change that, they will find a wide open door at Metrolinx to update the software accordingly, Miller added. There's a lot of should've, could've, would've's, Myers said, but I think right now we're getting it done. We're not pointing fingers. We're not trying to blame anyone. The newly minted Line 6 opened to the public on Sunday. Trains currently run under reduced soft opening conditions with lower than promised speeds and reduced frequency. Those conditions were put in place, according to the TTC and Metrolinx, in order to avoid the issues, including 2 derailments, that plagued the Ottawa LRT when it opened in 2019. Metrolinx had originally promised the Finch West LRT would have end-to-end travel times of about 33 minutes with an average travel speed of 20 kilometers per hour. But city staff told the TTC board they have known for at least a year the line would not meet those promised times. As politicians deliberated, Finch residents and the TTC union called for swift action to speed up the newly opened line. That's not good enough, said Butterfly Gopal, a community member of Jane Finch Action Against Poverty and an area resident on the TTC's timeline to speed up the LRT. Our buses weren't the greatest, but it moved people. It was predictable, Gopal said. This is not moving people the way we were promised for decades, and the construction alone left a mark in the neighborhood. Gopal was also concerned the area's residents wouldn't be able to get to work on time because of the LRT's sluggish pace. It's a slap in the face. We just continue to get slaps in our face and carry on, she said. We're literally left with no options. Marvin Alfred, president of ATU Local 113, told the Star his operators on the new line were frustrated. This is by design, said Alfred, adding that both Metrolinx and the TTC are to blame for the slow speed of the Finch West line. It is not the operator deciding to drive that slow by choice. Construction on the Finch West LRT began in 2019, and it was originally slated to open in 2021. The line's opening was pushed back for various reasons, including vehicle delivery delays and the pandemic, and a lawsuit. The 18-stop LRT line runs from Finch West Station in the east to Humber Polytechnic's North Campus in the west and will replace most of the 36 Finch West bus route. The next article is titled, CRA Says Plan to Improve Service is Working. This is by Ryan Tamilty, Ottawa. After public complaints and a scathing Auditor General's report, Canada Revenue Agency call centers are answering twice as many calls as they did last summer, but an assistant commissioner with the agency said Wednesday Canadians should not expect to get through all of the time. After a surge in public complaints last summer, the CRA launched a 100-day improvement plan that is now complete. Whereas only 35% of callers could get through to the call center staff in the summer, more than 70% are now getting through, according to the agency. During 1 week this fall, the rate climbed to 92%, the agency said. But Melanie Surjak, an assistant commissioner with the agency, said maintaining that 70% target is the agency's goal. We will never be in a position to answer 100% of the phone calls that we receive as an agency. We receive over 30 million phone calls a year, she said Wednesday. We'll always have a certain percentage of phone calls that we won't be able to answer. To reach the 70% response rate, the agency hired back 1,250 call center agents and is aiming to hire another 1,700 before tax season ramps up, a time when the agency can receive 300,000 calls per day. In October, Auditor General Karen Hogan released a report that found wait times were excessive and that call center agents were often giving out inaccurate information. She also found that a contract with IBM Canada to provide the call center's infrastructure had risen from $50 million to $217 million through amendments and changes to the original contract. In addition, the CRA has expanded what callers can do without having to deal with an agent, including resetting their online credentials. There is also an online tool where people can set up payment schedules for any taxes owed. The CRA said it has also improved its online chat box so it can answer more basic questions. A chatbot Hogan found was accurate just a third of the time. The agency has also improved service times for disability, tax credit, and child benefit applications so that fewer people call in looking for an update on their applications. Surjak said the 100-day plan was about addressing a crisis, but also building an agency that works for the long term. This plan has focused on addressing immediate concerns while implementing longer-term solutions as well, because we firmly believe that Canadians deserve an efficient, accessible, and a reliable tax system, she said. The CRA is bringing the new agents in through contract positions, as Prime Minister Mark Carney has called on all government agencies, including the CRA, to reduce costs by 15% over the next 3 years. In her report, Hogan found major problems with accuracy at call centers, with agents able to answer general questions about individual taxes correctly only about 17% of the time. Surjak said the auditor focused on general questions, but most people who call the CRA want information about their specific tax file, and the agency has found through internal audits that those answers are correct 90% of the time. Still, she said, the agency took Hogan's report seriously and is changing its review process to ensure agents are giving out accurate information. We learned from that report, she said. We are also implementing a fresh kind of view or fresh lens on how we score our agents' performance. And I need to remind you one more time. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Sun on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And this next article is under the byline of Inside, Ambassador's Exit. Canada's envoy to D.C. says bowing out now was the responsible thing to do. Outgoing ambassador to U.S. says pause in trade talks gives her successor time to get up to speed. This is by Tonda McCharles. Ottawa. Canada's outgoing ambassador to the United States, Kristen Hillman, says now is a good time to leave a job she loves, that it was her decision and not a push by the Prime Minister, and that her successor's biggest job is to be Mark Carney's eyes and ears on a powerful U.S. president and the shifting circles of influences around him. Hillman is jammed for time, doing just that. A day after her surprise announcement she'd soon leave her post as ambassador and as co-lead on Canada-U.S. trade negotiations, Hillman is juggling calls, prepping to testify Thursday at a closed briefing of Congressional Ways and Means Committee members. Her departure doesn't take effect until sometime early in the new year, so for now she's still going flat out. Last spring, the Prime Minister asked me if I would be willing to stay. She was, to help the transition, but I also said that I wasn't interested in staying on for another term as ambassador. In an interview Wednesday with The Star, Hillman said she'll help ease the entry of a new ambassador, whom the Prime Minister said he will name in the coming weeks. Carney refused comment on reports that financier Mark Wiseman is in line for the job, while former Quebec Premier Jean Charest's name is also in play. The Prime Minister praised Hillman as an exceptional public servant who has done a fantastic job for Canada, although Carney misstated her ambassadorial tenure as 4 years. In fact, Hillman's time in Washington spanned 8 tumultuous years, 6 as ambassador. A lawyer by training, career public servant, and an experienced trade negotiator, Hillman navigated Washington's swampy diplomatic waters with aplomb, deepened ties with federal and state lawmakers, American CEOs, and mingled easily with Republican and Democratic decision makers on political convention floors or inside the Oval Office. She won plaudits across social media and in the House of Commons Wednesday for her skilled performance in the high-octane posting. Former Canadian ambassador in Washington, Frank McKenna, said, Ambassador Hillman's going to go out with her head high, with a lot of respect from people on both sides of the border. She really had to perform heroically. Although Canada is well served by its professional diplomatic corps, and Hillman was very savvy politically, McKenna said the Washington diplomatic post is unique and at this critical time requires someone with a political pedigree who has the ear of the Prime Minister, who is wired into the business world on both sides of the border, who has trade expertise and is at ease communicating through media. Hillman said she realized over recent months that leaving now ahead of the scheduled 2026 Canada-US-Mexico agreement that CUSMA review made sense after intensive trade talks faltered this fall. It's becoming clear that more and more discussions with the United States are going to be coming under or in the context of the USMCA, the CUSMA discussions, Hillman said, and those discussions are going to take a while. So it just seems like the most responsible thing for me is to not stay on until we're many months into that and then depart, but actually depart at the beginning. Assist with the transition so a new team is in place that sees it from start to finish. Hillman and her co-lead in those talks, Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, had been negotiating to adjust the punishing U.S. 50% sectoral tariffs on steel and aluminum and 10% levies on energy. Other major sectors like autos, dairy, and digital services were expected to be tackled months later in the broader review of the trilateral agreement. Hillman plans to retire from the public service and return to her Ottawa home. I'm going to spend some time with my family and reflect on what comes next. I'm honestly not sure what that's going to be. I've got a few ideas, but I'm going to think it through and take some time to decide. Hillman skillfully negotiated Canada's entry into Asia's free trade deal, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. And after joining the D.C. Embassy in 2017, she helped stick-handle the NAFTA renegotiation of Trump's first presidential term and the first round of the U.S. global tariffs on steel and aluminum. She was named ambassador by Justin Trudeau in 2020 and presented her credentials to Trump before his Democratic rival Joe Biden took office. Though the Canada-U.S. dynamic is tense at the moment, Hillman says there is an evident personal connection between Carney and Trump. It's clear that President Trump respects Prime Minister Carney. There is no question of that. And not only because of how he, the president, sort of interacts with him, but because he says it. He comments on the Prime Minister as a strong leader, as a smart leader, as a successful politician, a successful person. These are the kind of terms that he uses when he's talking with the Prime Minister and when he's talking about the Prime Minister. I don't think it's going to solve all of our problems and challenges, but it's certainly important that they have this strong relationship and line of communication. Reflecting on her work as a diplomat, Hillman said she never felt at a disadvantage being a non-politician dealing with political counterparts, cabinet-level officials, and White House members. Yes, they're politicians, but they're also appointed to those jobs, she said. Unlike Canada's cabinet members, they come with backgrounds and expertise from different areas. And I have found that my unique expertise in Canada-U.S. relations in general, trade in particular, has opened doors for me. Asked what Canada needs now in a Washington ambassador, Hillman doesn't hesitate. Someone skilled at building relationships and trust. The most important thing that you can offer is insight on the dynamics on the ground regarding those who are making the decisions for the president and his close advisors in real time and with depth and sophistication. And in order to do that, you need to build relationships here in Washington and around the country with businesses, CEOs, with political leadership, and with this other layer of individuals who are influential, in particular with President Trump. And the next article is titled Quebec Liberals Under Investigation. Montreal. Quebec's anti-corruption police have launched a criminal investigation of the provincial Liberal Party, prompting some Liberals to voice doubts about the continued leadership of former federal cabinet minister Pablo Rodriguez, the Liberals are facing allegations of possible vote buying during a leadership race earlier this year that saw Rodriguez take the reins of the party. On Wednesday, a defiant Rodriguez told reporters he is absolutely staying on as leader, despite multiple investigations related to the campaign he won in June. I was duly elected by the members, he said. I have nothing to reproach myself for. The Liberal caucus was thrown into turmoil in November after former parliamentary leader Marwa Rizki fired her chief of staff without consulting Rodriguez. He later expelled her from the caucus, saying she had not explained her reasons to him and that she lacked loyalty. Shortly after Rizki dismissed her chief of staff, Le Journal de Montreal published text messages suggesting some party members who voted for Rodriguez could have received cash rewards. It's unclear whether the two stories are connected. A spokesperson for Quebec's anti-corruption unit on Wednesday confirmed an investigation has begun but did not offer details. And the next article is under the byline NDP leadership. Candidate barred over harassment allegations. Ottawa. Self-described agitator Yves Engler has been denied entry to the NDP leadership race after the party's vetting committee said it has credible evidence of harassment. In a statement issued Wednesday, Engler said he wants the party's federal council to overturn a decision from the leadership vote committee to disqualify his candidacy. NDP National President Lucy Watson said in a statement that candidates in the leadership race need to uphold values of integrity, honesty, and respect for human rights. After reviewing Mr. Engler's full application, the leadership vote committee determined he did not meet the eligibility standards that apply to every applicant. He exercised his right to request a review, and an independent review committee upheld that decision, Watson said in a statement. In a virtual press conference Wednesday, Engler said the NDP's reasoning was sloppy and the party is scared to have him in the race. He said it should be up to members to decide who can and can't run. Correspondence from the NDP to Engler says he was disqualified due to credible evidence of harassment, intimidation, and physical confrontation of party members, staff, and volunteers, among other reasons. In a second virtual press conference later Wednesday, Engler said he wants the party to provide specific evidence of harassment claims and likened what he shares on social media to, quote, street journalism, end quote. And before I go on to the next article, let me remind you one last time you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And the next article is titled, Carney's Private Jet Flight to Egypt Costs $736,000. This is by Ryan Tumulty. Prime Minister Mark Carney's last-minute flight on a private jet to attend a peace summit in Egypt cost more than $700,000 after Canada's Air Force was unable to make a plane available. Carney went to Sharm el-Sheikh for the signing of a deal that marked the end of the conflict between Israel and Hamas. The summit was held at the invitation of U.S. President Donald Trump, who helped to broker the deal. The Prime Minister left Canadian media behind for the trip, traveling on a private aircraft with just a handful of staff members. His office said at the time that none of the Royal Canadian Air Force's airplanes were available to make the flight, which the Defense Department confirmed in documents tabled in Parliament this week. In addition to a large Airbus passenger jet that the government keeps for official travel, the government has a fleet of smaller Challenger jets that can be used by the Prime Minister and cabinet ministers. According to an order paper question tabled in the House of Commons, none of those aircraft was available to be called up on short notice. Situations where national defense cannot support the Prime Minister's itinerary are extremely rare, and this is the sole instance in recent times where contingencies were not possible, reads the response from the Department of National Defense. The department usually keeps an airplane and crew ready for official travel within 12 hours' notice, according to the department. The department estimated that if a Challenger aircraft had been available, Carney's trip to Egypt would have cost the government about $198,800. Instead, the government chartered a Bombardier Global 5000 aircraft from Chartwright Air Group that cost $736,466.11 for a round trip of approximately 11 hours in each direction. According to the documents, the decision for Carney to attend Trump's peace deal ceremony was made on October 12 at 8:30 a.m. Carney left that evening around 6:45 p.m. and returned to Canada on the morning of October 14. And now I'm going to read something from the opinion page, and this is by Martin Reg Cohn. Ford blusters into work from home debate. The pandemic is long over. Now can we all get back to work? Wait, not so fast. As the Ontario government is rapidly discovering, about 1 in 6 civil servants is slow walking their return to the workplace. Doug Ford wants government workers back at their workstations 5 days a week starting January 5, but the premier is facing pushback. Nearly 11,000 workers have formally submitted requests to work from home at least 1 day a week, swamping the provincial government with paperwork while their unions warn of a shutdown. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he'll soon unveil his own plan, but perhaps mindful of Ontario's experience, Ottawa is still talking to public service unions. Never mind that the COVID emergency that launched the remote work experiment ended in May 2023, according to the World Health Organization. That was 2.5 years ago, but the passage of time is beside the point, according to the stay-at-home side. It's no longer about social distancing. It's now about redefining social norms. Social distancing allowed people to feel connected yet disconnected, electronically linked but geographically isolated. Desk jobs no longer required desks, just laptops and perhaps a kitchen table. Many hope to reinvent the workplace while still getting the work done, with flexible schedules that, let's be honest, allowed parents to pick up their kids from childcare, not to mention take the dog for a walk, greet the plumber, and walk 10,000 steps. Today, the workplace is divided into 2 distinct classes of workers and 2 competing camps. Frontline workers have no choice but to show up. They supervise kids in childcare, serve patients in hospitals, save lives in ambulances, or deliver stuff to your door. In these public-facing jobs, they lack the luxury of choice. Back office workers and others who prefer to toil remotely argue that they don't need to be present in person. That flexibility opens the door to discretionary exemptions as long as they get the job done, they argue. But is there more to the job than getting the job done? Should workplace attendance and performance be judged solely by whether you can complete assigned tasks? What about the ineffable lightness of being together and being in it together? What of the benefits of camaraderie and mentorship, and possibility of being coached by a senior colleague and noticed by a supervisor. Now the Premier has waded into the debate, importuning the province's 60,000 civil servants to get in the game. Half the public service is already at work 5 days a week, and I want to thank them. And I just look forward to having everyone back to work, he said last August. The big banks were first to order their tens of thousands of employees back to those gleaming office towers, so it was only a matter of time before big governments followed their lead. That leaves unions caught in the middle. On the one hand, they feel the need to heed their members who are dragging their feet. On the other hand, a widely dispersed workforce is no friend of the labor movement when it comes to signing up new members or deploying picket lines during a strike. Remote picketing via Zoom lacks the personal touch. We all know remote work works, insisted Dave Ballmer, president of the Association of Management, Administrative, and Professional Crown Employees of Ontario. That's AMAPCEO. In truth, it's more nuanced than that. When I hosted 3 influential labor leaders together for a democracy forum at Toronto Metropolitan University last year, they were candid about the remoteness of remote work in their own union offices. I like seeing my coworkers at work, I've got to be honest, said Canadian Labour Congress President Bea Brusky. I like being able to have a quick conversation as you're grabbing that next cup of coffee, having that collaboration. Just needing to have human interaction in your day, I think, is really important, added Unifor President Lana Payne. Disclosure: Unifor represents Toronto Star journalists. I do like seeing them in the office, I have to say. J.P. Hornick, president of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, that's OPSEU, noted pointedly at our TMU event that remote work tends to be very class-based phenomenon, and correctional officers represented by the union can't exactly work from home. Yet today, OPSEU is resisting the 5-day directive, trying to limit its applicability, its implementation timeline, and negotiate exemptions. In a statement, the union said it is also advising members to file individual grievances about the mandate based on their own circumstances. A contradiction, perhaps, but not the only one. Consider the worst kept secret in Ontario, which is that the Premier does his best work at home. When wooing or schmoozing somebody important, Ford typically invites them back to the house in Etobicoke to hold court. That said, he also hands out his cell number and takes calls late at night, so he's not exactly a role model for work-life balance at home or the office. And the next article is under the byline Alberta. Smith faces push for removal. Recall petition targets Premier, a first in 90 years, by Jack Farrell. Edmonton. Danielle Smith has become the second Alberta Premier and the first in almost 90 years to face a citizen-led petition drive to get her removed from her seat in the legislature. Smith and 2 more of her United Conservative Party caucus members saw recall campaigns officially approved and launched Wednesday by Elections Alberta. In total, 20 in the 47-member UCP caucus are facing recall petitions. A signature gathering drive has also been launched against NDP member Amanda Chapman. Heather Van Snick is leading the petition drive in Smith's southern Alberta riding of Brooks. Medicine Hat. Van Snick needs to collect just over 12,000 signatures to move the process forward. In her application, Van Snick writes that Smith has been ignoring local constituents and experts in developing policies. Effective leadership requires genuine connection and consistent engagement, both absent in her tenure, she wrote. Van Snick also said Smith needs to go because the premier has been weakening public services in favor of privatization. Ms. Smith is no longer fit to serve. Smith on Wednesday denied any suggestion that she wasn't accountable to local residents or that she didn't make time to hear their concerns. I can tell you that Brooks, Medicine Hat, used to call themselves the Forgotten Corner. They're not forgotten anymore, she said. Petitioners have 3 months to collect signatures equal to 60% of the total number of votes cast in the constituency in the 2023 election. If successful, a vote would be held on whether the MLA keeps their seat. If the member loses, a by-election is held. And I will end with you've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the December 11 issue of the Toronto Star. Your reader has been Jane. Thank you for listening.